There are moments when what is visible becomes less important than what is not. A sky pierced by contrails is striking. But the meaning behind those remnants of force often lies in silence. This is true of the airstrikes that have crossed into Iranian territory, strikes that are public in spectacle, yet cloaked in complexity and strategic logic. When Israeli jets fly deep into Iranian airspace to strike military, nuclear, or defensive targets, the flash of impact draws global attention. But beneath that spectacle lies a quieter architecture of calculation. Choices weighed carefully, risks assessed deliberately, outcomes measured long before the first aircraft takes off. These airstrikes are not random bursts of force. They are the apex of years of tension, mistrust, and competition. For decades, Israel and Iran have confronted each other indirectly through proxy battles, intelligence operations, cyber intrusions, and diplomatic maneuvering. In that shadow rivalry, neither side sought full-scale war. Yet both continuously tested boundaries, shaping a competition defined by deterrence without open declaration. Then came operations that pierced the veil. In June 2025, Israeli aircraft entered Iranian airspace in a coordinated campaign targeting missile infrastructure, nuclear facilities, and command centers. The scale was significant. Dozens of sites were struck across multiple regions. Publicly, the strikes were framed as necessary to degrade Iran's strategic capabilities, to disrupt ballistic missile development and weaken air defenses. In strategic terms, they were presented as preventive action. But what often goes unexamined is the signal embedded in such operations. Airstrikes inside sovereign territory do more than damage facilities. They redefine deterrence. They reshape expectations of what is acceptable. They alter psychological thresholds. A preemptive strike does not merely adjust military balance. It adjusts perception. For Israel, the logic centers on neutralizing emerging threats before they mature. For Iran, such strikes are seen not only as tactical assaults but as direct violations of sovereignty, actions that demand response to preserve credibility. In response, Iran has reinforced and fortified key facilities, burying infrastructure deeper underground and hardening air defenses. The pattern becomes cyclical. Strike, repair, fortify. Each round tightens the spiral, and each round narrows diplomatic space. These actions are rarely isolated. They are linked to broader geopolitical calculations. Leaders weigh regional stability, alliance commitments, domestic pressures, and international reaction. Public statements emphasize security and necessity. But beneath official language lies strategic messaging. A visible strike communicates capability. It communicates reach. It communicates willingness. Yet willingness can be misread. Military operations ripple beyond their intended targets. They influence negotiations, shift alliance dynamics, and alter perceptions of vulnerability. Energy markets react. Diplomatic channels strain. Global actors reassess positioning. The secondary consequences often outweigh the immediate impact. Iran's response to perceived aggression includes repositioning strategic assets, strengthening defensive systems, and reinforcing narratives of resistance. These moves are not simply reactive, they are strategic recalibrations. And recalibration increases complexity. Visible airstrikes are only the surface. Behind them lie years of intelligence gathering, reconnaissance, contingency planning, and covert groundwork. Modern conflict rarely unfolds without preparation invisible to the public eye. But public discourse tends to focus on explosions and official statements. What is often missing is the long prelude, the incremental buildup of mistrust and preparation that makes such strikes possible. That absence of context obscures a crucial question. What happens when airstrikes cease to be extraordinary? When cross-border strikes become normalized tools of competition, deterrence begins to shift. What was once considered escalation becomes precedent, and precedent lowers barriers. For Tehran, the awareness of vulnerability reshapes defense planning. For Jerusalem, operational success may reinforce the logic of future interventions. For global powers observing closely, each exchange influences broader calculations about engagement and restraint. The risk is not only physical escalation. It is interpretive escalation, when covert preparation converges with overt force. And when sovereignty is challenged openly, the margin for miscalculation shrinks. A move intended as deterrence may be perceived as provocation. A defensive posture may appear offensive. In tightly balanced rivalries, perception can determine outcome. This is why what remains unsaid matters. Not the explosion itself, but the decision that preceded it. Not the official justification, but the strategic incentive beneath it. Airstrikes inside Iran are not isolated events. They are chapters in a longer narrative of competitive deterrence. The visible flash is momentary. The strategic shift endures. So ask yourself, are these operations stabilizing a volatile rivalry through controlled pressure? Or are they gradually redefining the boundaries of acceptable force? Because when deterrence evolves quietly, the consequences are rarely immediate, but they are rarely temporary either. In regions defined by layered alliances and historic mistrust, the most consequential escalation may not begin with a declaration. It may begin with normalization. And once normalization takes hold, the question is no longer whether strikes are possible. It becomes whether restraint still is.